Hello everyone. Today it's going to be a different type of video. I'm not going to be talking about the usual Halo Infinite stuff, but I'm going to be talking about a certain individual that everyone who watches his channel will probably know. Marty ODonnell, mostly known as Marty or Marty ODonnell. He is one of the Halo composers. He made a lot of the music and of the iconic soundtrack, the Halo theme, and all of that. And, there's a lot of musical contributions he's had. He worked at Bungie and, stayed with Bungie and Destiny before being fired. And over the years, a lot of people have admired him, looked up to him for his music. But there is an old saying that goes, never meet your heroes. Now, today is not the time for an in-depth video. I might do that, maybe, depending on how this video goes. There is definitely a lot that I could go in-depth about. But I'm going to be giving you guys an overview about what's been going on with Marty lately. And I guess my channel is a good place to do it because it still ties into Halo and, he was relevant for Halo, and there's also a lot of discussion about that, so here we go. For as much as Marty has been regarded as this, genius or a hero, musical hero, all of that, creator of the great Halo music, even though he shouldn't take all of the credit for it, for sure, he's always been a problematic individual. But a lot of that was not well known back then, or it was hidden, or it was tolerated, a word that we shall come back later. So as you may know, Marty has had a failed political campaign to run for the Republican Party in the United States. And apparently he was a very mid candidate, simply repeating a lot of the standard talking points, not bringing anything new, and a supporter of Project 2025, which we'll talk a little bit more later. Now, you also probably know that Marty was fired from Bungie at some point. There were issues, and also how Microsoft wouldn't hire him, right? Then people were like, why aren't Microsoft hiring Marty? Bring Marty back to Halo. But little did they know, and I've known for a while, but little did a lot of people know how much of a problem Marty was. Not only in being a person, and the way he worked with other people, but also deeper inside. As you may or may not know, Marty is a homophobe, transphobe, amongst other things. And that's not something, and especially with all of the problems and some of the history that I will talk about soon, including harassment, that is not something Microsoft has wanted to have near Halo. You may know or you may not know of the sexual harassment going on at Bungie, that happened at Bungie. A certain Bungie employee was fired for sexual misconduct against various women. I would like to express to the woman who had to go through that and who go through stuff like that in the games industry, I'd like to say I'm sorry about what they went through. Honestly, the games industry is not always the best place for women or minorities. I do know a lot of companies try to have programs to promote them, especially now, which is good, but honestly, look at this game industry. People get fired here and there. The executives don't really care. Those who are at the top, they don't care. They'll just fire anyone. When they have power and all of that, they'll just rise to the top. It doesn't matter to them what the people working go through. We've seen it with the layoffs at Bungie, at the Microsoft games, 53 Industries and the others, and all of that. But this has come to light, this story about this one Bungie employee. Marty's response was troubling to say the least. his response to all of the sexual misconduct against the various women was to say that Bungie made better games when it was a boys' club, that he still remembers trying to erase the artist whiteboards before the woman came to visit. And he mentions Lorraine, who was an amazing woman who did a lot of the iconic stuff for Halo. You might know in Halo lore the Reyes McLeese shipyards, which is one of the co-founders, Robert McLeese. He designed the Halston-class light cruiser, and this is a reference to Bungie employees Robert McLeese and his wife Lorraine, who was last name initially Reyes, and this is a reference to her, So she's an artist, and she was one of the employees at Bungie, one of the woman employees early on. There were it was mostly guys at Bungie early on, before, the games industry evolved. And there's a whole story about why video games were considered for boys, They weren't always made that way, but that's a whole different story, about the video game crash and all of that, which is not the point of this video at all, and I'm digressing. So, he mentioned her, and first of all, the tweets he said about it being a boys' club, that's already problematic. That's just sexism right there. And he paints himself as the one who tried to protect the woman and all of that. But he is far from someone who would protect a woman. That comment already is not good. That's sexism, Marty. But then she came and gave a response to what actually has happened. She has replied to the incident by saying, "I didn't tolerate it, which was why I held up the kitchen knife and told Marty to back off in 99. Being in a Halloween costume didn't make it okay to crowd in on the ladies and stroke their hair. He felt it was acceptable though." Shaking my head. Whiteboards, I was too busy to notice. Remember, she was brought up by name. She didn't come out of nowhere. Marty explicitly talked about her. So it's more than fair that she came in with her response. And basically, a lot of women in the games industry have had to, quote-unquote, tolerate. Tolerate does not mean accept. Tolerate means usually having to put up with something. They shouldn't have to, but they did. It's not okay. So Marty has been basically harassing women and has basically always been this problematic person. Does that make sense why Microsoft wouldn't want him back in Halo? Maybe now you guys will understand. And she's not the only one who's talked about his behavior. He's always been, like this, sort of this problematic, misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic person. Right now, he's drinking the right-wing Kool-Aid. I guess he's emboldened by it since he's always been in that position that I've known. He has, for example, been a climate change denier. Even a long time ago, apparently there are tweets of Marty sort of trying to bring in question, just climate change in general. But he used to more sort of be stealthily about it, not very open, not very vocal, but sort of sometimes frame things as questions, It's like a tactic that some people use to try and bring off the heat to themselves, being like, it's just a question, but it's actually a way to mask off whatever bigotry they have behind them. Marty also, has been a anti-vaxxer. He's full on to that side. And during the time of the lawsuits and all of that, he also tried to grift his followers, his loyal army that does everything that he commands them to do, to basically profit off of them, so he could just pay the legal expenses over all of the lawsuits when, the stuff with Bungie and all of that was happening. So he definitely partook in, trying to grift them. A lot of gullible people and a lot of, fanboys. Never meet your heroes. He would definitely, try to block and not silence, but more, block, I guess, people who would bring up to him that, hey, what you're trying to do is profit off of people to cover your legal expenses for the consequences of your own actions. And yeah, he's always been like this. Always has had this ego. Additionally, he made high-wire games after leaving Bungie. And one of the games that he was making was a very charged politically game. Awful game, basically, called 6 Days in Fallujah. He was involved in it. It deals with Fallujah in Iraq, the Second Battle of Fallujah. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. As you may or may not be aware, the United States has committed a lot of atrocities that have only publicly came out recently in Iraq. And Fallujah was no different. And basically to make a game out of that from a perspective which is one of, where the army who committed a lot of horrible stuff then, to go from that perspective, that's not great. Even certain of his co-workers, they couldn't stand that, and, they didn't want to have to be a part of it. People who knew Marty, who worked with Marty, they distanced themselves from him because of, how awful he was. He's simply put an awful person. A lot of it that I've talked about is political, but that's inherently tied to Marty and what he does. There's no way to avoid it. You can have different opinions. You can like chocolate, you can like vanilla, you can like pistachio. You can like Halo, you can hate Halo. You can criticize 343. You can like 343. You can like Halo. You can dislike Halo. But when it comes to human rights, when it comes to basic stuff, human decency, not committing atrocities, not being a homophobe, not assaulting people, not being a transphobe, all of that and more, that's where the line is drawn, That's no longer just, it's just an opinion. The line is drawn. And Marty crossed the line a while ago. It's only coming to light more and more because instead of retiring happily and living off, happily with all of his money, he's decided to become part of the public limelight and just spout nonsense and spout so much that it's coming back to bite him. His ego is his public undoing. And again, all of this, I can go on. There's a lot, He came out as being a supporter of Project 2025, which is an horrible, awful thing. It's basically a Christo-fascist plan for the U.S. in case it wins, including, it's big, but some of the points are about making sure that there's way less protections for the environment, or a lot of the organizations to be not as funded and all of that, deregulations, bringing the education into standards that are non-existent, where it's basically just like, what is Christofascism? Basically, it's like a type of Christian fascist view and regime where it's only those certain views that they hold that they want to impose on everyone, including on everything about education, being against trans people, being against LGBT plus people. Horrible. No freedom of religion, no separation between state and church, just bringing a certain type of quote-unquote Christianity as the foundation for the government with their horrible values. And Marty is all like, oh yeah, all of this sounds good. And I'm not even kidding. So, on top of just being a horrible person who has such a big ego, Marty has been harassing women, I guess. Yes, that's simply harassment, what he was doing. It happened a while ago. He's still the same. He never had like this change in him where he became a better person. He simply is emboldened by his views. Horrible person, and that's basically what's been going on with Marty. There's a lot I could say. There's a lot way more that can be said about Marty. But I guess this is some of the short version of it. I made this video, etc., different from what I usually do. But there you have it, guys. Maybe you're caught up a bit now. Should I do an in-depth version? We'll see the response about this, because there's a lot that, a lot of research that can be done to bring up a lot of the actual things and dates and all of that. But, that would take a lot of work, which is way more than this video is about. Right now, I just have the mic on, making this as I go with the stuff that's been happening recently and so on. I also forgot to comment on his horrible support for the genocide going on right now. He is more than fine with it. He's supporting genocide as we speak. And unfortunately, there's certain people in the halosphere who still give him a spotlight, a place for him to stand. Certain people who have gone on before to not really support the people they should be supporting, basically. So, yeah, now you know, guys. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.